Fetcher, Chief Growth Officer at Cypress North. We're a digital agency in Buffalo, New York, and you're listening to the Agency Scoop. Each episode, I'll tackle a specific topic from an agency point of view. We're going to talk about what's helping us grow, challenges that we face, how we're working with our clients, and even things that bring us joy. Welcome to this month's episode of the Agency Scoop. A couple weeks ago, I talked about how people are having a lot of hiring challenges, and one of the ways that we have been staffing up at Cypress North and growing our team is to use interns and help them go from having an internship with us to becoming a full-time employee and growing our base that way. So I thought it'd be helpful if today we brought in two of our star interns from spring, and we hired them full-time after they graduated, and they did such an awesome job at their internship that we knew we had to keep them around. And so I have Nicole Waddington here with me, as well as Blodgett. And I thought it'd be helpful for anyone that has an intern or has an intern that reports to them, and things that they can do to make them more valuable to the organization, and also maybe some advice for people who are looking for an internship or currently have an internship. So thank you guys so much for coming on the show today.
Of course.
And I'll start with Nicole. Why don't you introduce yourself, where you came from, what you studied?
Yeah, so my name is Nicole Waddington. I came from the University of Buffalo, and I studied political science and business administration with a concentration in marketing. So I ended up in marketing, and I guess it worked out. Yeah.
Great. How about you, Caleb?
My name's Blodgett. I went to Canisius College. I studied digital media and philosophy with a minor in comm. And I never expected to end up in marketing. That was like a stroke of luck, I guess. So here we are.
Well, what were your goals after you graduated?
So it was weird. I had two unrelated degrees. Philosophy is clearly not related whatsoever to media and production, but I figured I'd end up somewhere in the media sphere, doing content, video, that kind of thing. And I guess I kind of do now, but not in the way that I thought I would. So you never know where life is going to take you,
Yeah, got to be open.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you, Nicole? You had two very different majors as well. What were your goals?
Yeah, so again, very similar to Caleb, political science and marketing, two very separate things. Originally, I wanted to get into politics, so I saw myself doing the grunt work in campaigns, or eventually going to grad school and doing political research and policy research. And then I quickly freaked out when it came to my junior year, thinking, that would be fun in your 20s, but I want something where I can see myself growing long term and have a more stable lifestyle. So ended up adding on business and finding marketing, because it really does combine data and creativity. And I'm so glad I went and changed my path midway through my undergrad career.
Yeah. Well, and it's good you still got both degrees and both majors, so it's good to have a well-rounded education.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you were going to school, was an internship required, or did you get one just to have some experience coming out of school?
The School of Management did not require internships, but they strongly encouraged them. At UB, as a business student, you're required to take 2 semesters of a career connections course. And that course is really meant to introduce you to how to write a cover letter, how to craft a resume, how to interview for jobs and internships. And then they really do push you to actually apply to whatever positions you practiced applying to. And I would say that most people end up getting some job experience through it, or internship experience.
Great. How about you, Caleb? Were you required to do an internship?
Yeah, just like Nicole, there was really not a lot of formal requirement in my field of study. I did philosophy and media, so most of that was handled by research during undergrad. So I did a ton of research, but there was no official requirement to pursue an internship for the major.
Okay. Well, where did you look for internship opportunities?
Oh boy, I started looking I'd say the end of my junior year, and I looked anywhere that would allow me to kind of use the skills I learn on a day-to-day in class. So I wasn't really concerned with industry as long as like the core was there, what I was doing every day and like what I knew how to do. So I was looking like, in marketing, I was looking in media, I was looking in like even in politics, if like, for campaign stuff, like if those skills were being used, I wanted to use them in whatever capacity that they existed in. So
you widened your search.
Yeah,
quite a
absolutely.
bit.
I had like a really broad net, a really big net.
Okay. How about you, Nicole? Where did you look for internship opportunities?
Similar to Caleb, I just was open to any industry and basically anyone who wanted an intern because I didn't really know I wanted to end up in marketing. And so I looked at political campaigns, I looked at nonprofits, private organizations, and that's the one thing that I really am glad that I did, because then when I came to Cyprus North, I knew I had tried all these other different industries and I had stuff to compare this to.
Yeah, just like Nicole, I think I wanted to have a kind of a standard to compare everything to. So having a lot of different experiences was good in that regard because it allowed me to know kind of going forward what I wanted to do and like what I didn't want to do as well.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything in our internship job listing that stuck out to you that made you want to apply here?
I think that when I was initially looking at it, like the full breadth of things that I would be doing, or like that you guys said you needed someone to do, just different day-to-day things, like having not just one thing. Like you're gonna be working, you could be doing stuff with dev, you could be doing stuff, with creative, and that you're gonna have to marry all of these things in your role. Just as an intern, I thought that was pretty good. Like the fact that you're actually not just doing grunt work every single day, you're doing stuff that matters to like people's overall projects and just to propel the company forward in the way that you can.
Great. How about you, Nicole? Did anything stick out to you?
The fact that I didn't know anything about digital marketing, really, the unknown. I was really looking for definitely something in marketing. I was always curious about an agency experience, and I knew that there was going to be a ton of things to learn. And second, I knew that it was paid. And I think a lot of people don't want to talk about that.
Sure.
And I think it's super important to pay your internships for the work that they're doing, because if your job description is accurate, like you wrote it, and you're saying that they're going to gain so much valuable knowledge and they're going to work on hands-on projects, well, if those hands-on projects mean something, then you would pay them to do that work. And so that, to me, showed that you as a company cared what your interns were doing and cared enough to pay them.
That's good advice, because I think that a lot of internships, they don't say if they're free or paid, and you might go through the whole interview process or go through researching that company and then find out that they're not paid, and maybe you can't afford to do that during a semester. So obviously, y'all interviewed during a pandemic. Your senior year was amidst the global pandemic we were all going through. So with so much going on in your future at stake, what were your thoughts going into that experience?
The pandemic really made me open up my options, because I always thought as you go through your undergrad career, you're supposed to narrow your options. You're supposed to know what you don't want to do and what you do want to do a little bit more. And that completely unraveled that line of thinking, because now you're hearing about how companies are laying off full-time employees. You're hearing about how bad the job market's going to be. And I don't know if, Caleb, you agree, but our generation grew up through the 2008 recession, where we saw our parents and our aunts and uncles and family members getting laid off. And so I feel like from then to our job search, it always was kind of negative. It was always kind of the thinking of, you're never going to get a job in the industry you want. You should just go and be a doctor, an engineer, something really stable, and something that you're going to find a job after college in. And so I just completely opened up my options during the pandemic. I'm like, okay, all the rules are off the table. I can be open to anything and just see everything as a learning opportunity, really.
And you actually, when you interviewed with us, told us that you were doing something really interesting, because the semester before you couldn't get a regular internship. And so you had created a spreadsheet of all these people that you wanted to talk to about their jobs. So even though you weren't doing a formal internship, you were still learning about all the options out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely kept me busy. And I think it was a way to kind of calm my anxiety about the job market, because hearing other people's hardships and experiences through COVID in the marketing industry, I was like, okay, everybody's going through the same thing. It's all going to be okay. Like, I'm not going to be unemployed, hopefully, when I get out of college. I'll figure it out.
How about you, Caleb? Any insights on the interviewing during the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, it really similar to what Nicole said. I think one of the biggest things was, well, like everything like happened so quickly, right? So I remember, one day I'm like studying and like worrying about tests, and the next day there's a huge pandemic and everything around the world is closing. And like because of that, just like you, I was like, oh, okay, I have to be a little bit more open. Can't have one singular idea of what I want to do, or what the type of experience I'm getting, or the type of internships or opportunities I'm looking for. It has to be like really broad, because, in my head, I wasn't thinking about job. I was thinking about, okay, what's a way I can just like add skill, you know what I mean? And add like experience so that when this stuff is over, I can get a job. You know what I mean? And that was like how I was looking at it.
So what made you decide to take the internship at Cypress North?
I think in addition to like the stuff we said earlier, I think just once I got here, like talking to you, talking to Greg, and talking to just seeing like how nice everyone was, and sort of how committed everyone actually was after talking to you to like teaching and like helping me grow as a marketer and in digital marketing into this like field that I hadn't had any experience in yet. I think that was the biggest thing, because there's a big difference between, people who say they do that and people who actually do that. And I thought that was like key personally to like saying, okay, I think I should do this,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You had a good gut feeling you could trust us?
Yeah,
that
no.
we were going to do what we said?
No, absolutely. I mean, I've interned, at quite a few places, and some of them are better than others. And like the bad ones, like a clear thing is that they're not particularly interested in teaching as much as they are getting like these extra tasks that they don't feel like doing done. So the fact that like instantly I knew that wasn't going to be the case, that like if people actually want me to like do well, that was super important.
How about you, Nicole? What made you decide to join us?
Echoing what Caleb said, really, like in the initial interview, the excitement that you and Greg had about hiring interns, and you can feel the authenticity in that conversation. And I had actually interviewed with a couple people before that in my search in my last semester for an internship. And again, comparing my experiences in that interview, everybody was lovely in interviews and very nice and professional, but they didn't have the same excitement about teaching that you guys did.
That's great. So advice for anyone hiring interns: put the people that will like to work with interns on the interview with the interns too, and get those people working with interns.
I think
it's
that
important.
Like based off of just that too, like I think people who are like looking for internships like know pretty like straight away, like from the interview, like what these people's objectives are, and sort of what's going to be the overall like vibe of it during the entire internship experience. So like I think that's super important, having people who actually like want to do it, you know what I mean, and interact with the intern is pretty big.
And I will add, it goes both ways. I think as a college student, you feel imposter syndrome sometimes. You feel obviously nervous maybe going into an interview, but remembering that you're also interviewing the company too.
Right.
And there are things to look for, green flags, when you're talking to your potential boss and the people that you're going to be working with for a semester.
I like that, green flags.
Yeah.
So you were our first interns in quite a while, to be honest. So we were kind of winging it a little bit. We were excited about it, but also we didn't necessarily have a real structure in place. So what were some of the good things about your internship?
I think just trusting us, like right off the bat, because even though, at least for me, I started out virtual, like my first week and a half, because I hadn't come to Buffalo for my semester yet. I think Greg allowed me to like upload a campaign one of my first weeks in Google Ads, and I was honored that he trusted me to do that, but also incredibly nervous and all of those other feelings that come with learning something new. But the trust that you put in to your interns from the get-go is something that does not go unnoticed. And I think that that's just more encouragement for us to be open to asking more questions and getting our hands in stuff that maybe other internships wouldn't allow their interns to touch or like to be a part of.
Yeah, I think just building off of that too, like the trust is huge, but I also think like just actually, like you made a point about getting your hands on stuff and like actually having an effect and contributing to projects that are actually going in front of clients, and that, you know, you have to do this because it needs to get done. It's not just like, you know, stupid, dumb, busy work. And I think that was huge for me because, you know, it was a similar experience. It was like first few weeks, you know, I was uploading campaigns and I was doing research for stuff that clients were going to see. And I knew the clients were going to see it. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't scary as much as it was like kind of gratifying, because I was like, oh, well, like the work that I'm doing like matters and I'm learning, you know? So that to me was one of the greatest things about the experience, you know?
Good. What were some things that you thought we could have done differently to give you a better internship experience?
Well, I think it's hard, especially if, like you said, if we were the first interns in a while, there's probably no solid way to have like established structure. But I don't know, like some of the things that we're doing now, probably for the current intern, it would have been nice, like having, you know, getting certified straight off, because that was like a long process that, you know, probably was longer than it had to be just because you don't know to do it. You know what I mean? You're doing all this other stuff. You don't think about foundational things. So that's probably one way I'd say, you know, just having those like, oh, do this first before you do that, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, so Google Ads certifications
Yeah,
before
like,
you start, or taking that first week.
Exactly. Yeah, I think like devoting like the first few weeks to like 101 stuff was like probably be good in the long run. But we do that now anyway, so it's like you know, you live and you learn.
Yeah, we've changed a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
That feedback. How about you, Nicole? Are there things that we could have done differently?
I would agree with Caleb. Just a little more formalization of the certifications would have been maybe a little bit helpful. But at the same time, like, you learn best by doing. So that wasn't necessarily a bad thing to just jump right in.
So you both were a bit of a unique case because it wasn't your first internship. As you've said, you've had other experiences. Did the previous work you did at internships help your job here at Cypress North?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that any experience, whether it had been the part-time jobs I worked or like my earliest internship was like paper pushing in a local town hall. So unrelated, it seems, but I think in general you just pick up how to interact with different people of different ages and industries, and just learn how to become a part of the organization pretty quickly once you have professional experience, and that really helps you communicate and navigate everything during an internship.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that one of the big things was I was worried coming in about thinking like, okay, well, I've done like this internship, I've done this podcasting thing, I've done like, you know, this real estate thing. I'm like, how does this translate over? And I was really like concerned at first because, you know, that's the stuff I knew how to do. And you know, quickly I figured out though that it's not about necessarily the title of the role that you had at other places. It's like the carryover, like what can you know, translate over, what are the skills and, you know, the abilities that you learn that may not necessarily be a direct, you know, crossover, but it's enough to where you can take some of those skills and even in one way and apply them to what, you know, you're doing now in the current, you know, in the now. And that was like big for me because I like one of the things, for instance, is I did an internship a few years ago that was just podcast production. Like that was all it was basically. And, you know, that's like one of the biggest parts of my jobs here is like producing, you know, the shows and stuff. And I would have never thought, you know, that would have been a translatable skill, but it ended up being one that was. So you never know until, you end up where you're going to end up, how your previous experience can help you.
Definitely. So we always try to pride ourselves on really helping to train for the future. So how much would you say you learned during your internship? Prepare you for your job now?
Yeah. I mean, I was essentially doing what I do now, which speaks to how much we learn as interns here and how much you trust us to work on real client projects and communicate with clients directly, whether it be email or in a meeting, and presenting our ideas.
Yeah, 100%. I think that the day-to-day duties that I did as an intern, it's like I do the same ones now, just like way more. You know what I mean? And it's like you kind of see more of the bigger picture, as after the internship. And I think that's huge. It's like, all the skills I learned about using different platforms, or, doing different types of research, or even working with different types of clients, and like how that changes the job depending on the client. That was huge now, especially because, you don't really get those things when you're an intern, because you only see so little, I feel like, of the day to day. But after you're here, that stuff comes into context and it makes sense and it falls into place. So.
So at the beginning, were you hoping that this would turn into a full-time gig?
I was not even thinking that far. I was happy. I was so happy to have an internship during a pandemic that I was like, I'm just going to learn as much as I can and get as much experience as possible. That was so not far off in my head, but like not primary, because my philosophy was I'm going to just get as much skills and experience as possible. So whenever I do have to get a job, I can, but it wasn't necessarily like my objective, I think, starting out. I think definitely as the internship went off, it became like a better and better prospect, because you learn more, you get to know more of the people. But like when I started, probably not.
How about you?
Yeah, I'd say the same. Yeah. I was just coming in with an open mind and thinking, okay, I'm going to try this. And that's what's great about internships, is that they're for a finite amount of time, right, and you're never stuck for, say, year, 2 years in a position that you're unhappy with. But I quickly realized after my first couple weeks here that this is all real. Yeah. What you guys talk about in your pillars and the company culture, it doesn't go away. It's not a facade. Once I started, and after a few weeks, I was like, I could see myself here. Yeah. As a full-time employee. Mm-hmm.
That's great. And I think, would you tell other interns to think about that? Like, anyone looking for an internship, like, treat it like a job interview and take it as though it could turn into something?
I think.
Think through that?
I don't know. I think that it's definitely important to like have a focus on your future and to think about that at all times. But I also think it's important to look at it more as, how is this enhancing my skills and abilities? Because, as long as you're getting the skill and ability that you set out to get in the first place, that only contributes to you getting a job anywhere, So like, it's a nice goal to have, but I think if you like pigeonhole it into that and like are so focused with it turning it into a job that you can like maybe lose a little bit of the experience, but that's also really easy to say having a job, as an intern, it's like a lot hard, especially depending on your situation, it can be really different. So it's good to have that in mind, but it's also good to know that, you're also there to develop yourself as well. Mm-hmm. That's like another primary core objective, Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I always think too is getting to know people as an intern. Mm-hmm. That you're there to create relationships, and so if there isn't a position at the end of the internship that you could kind of slide into or get hired, or it's good to have all of those people knowing what good work you did and that you did acquire those skills. So Nicole, what factors went into your decision to stay at Cypress North?
I think just the fact that everything that I experienced in my 3.5 months was super authentic, and I knew that my learning would continue past my internship. And I know that we have kind of like a startup culture here where, nothing's above you. And if you want to learn something new, or you are curious about somebody else's position and what they do day to day, you're not limited to what you came on is like a full-time employee for. And so I think that just the growth opportunities here were really attractive, and just the people too. And it's a really close-knit team, and everybody's super helpful and nice. And I know that I could see myself maybe regretting trying to go for a bigger company that, might have paid a ton in finance or in a different industry, but the learning opportunities and the day-to-day culture are kind of irreplaceable when looking for a full-time job.
Great.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that that's one of the things that went into mine as well, is thinking like, okay, if I'm going to start my career somewhere, what does that place look like? And that had been in my head. So, and after interning, like a lot of those fell into place, and Cypress North looked like a place that anyone would want to start a career, especially like you said, being able to grow and like do plenty of different things and get those skills early is huge. I don't think you can get that at, other places.
Yeah. I remember when I had first accepted the job position here, one of the managers was like, oh, this is like college 2.0. You have nothing to be worried about. Like, you're going to learn so much, and you're just going to keep learning. And I think that was encouraging, because accepting a full-time job is a big deal. And you almost think, oh my gosh, like I don't know how to do X, Y, Z.
Right.
And even being here as an intern, you think, okay, well, I got to prove myself at the next level here. And I think that manager saying that was encouraging, like, okay, the learning's not going to stop. Like, this isn't going to be some dead end job where I'm bored and I'm doing the same thing over and over again every day and I'm stuck. And so I think it was funny, the college 2.0.
We never stop learning.
Yeah.
And the imposter syndrome for everyone is real.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah,
Everyone here.
absolutely.
So we're all always learning, always growing. So so what advice would you give to companies that are starting an internship program?
I'd say be very upfront in your job description about what they're actually going to be doing, because that's only going to save you time from interviewing somebody who's maybe not a good fit or is looking for something else. And then the second thing is pay your interns. I know that I had mentioned this to you and Greg when I interned, because you were very upfront about the pay and the expectations and what I was going to be doing day to day. And a lot of times it's more work to get college credit for your internships than it is to just not get paid at all. And so I've been in situations where I'm weighing the pros and cons of even doing an internship, because they don't pay, but they require you to take college credit. Yeah. And I didn't have a problem with, getting enough college credits to graduate. So sometimes I ended up declining internships because of that. And I would rather work and save up money. Yeah. So paying your interns.
Yeah, that's huge. I think that is that's big. I think like recognizing that not everyone has the same incentive for an internship, is huge, because I was in a similar situation. I declined plenty of internships in the past because I don't need the credits, and the opportunity wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. So there's no need to pursue things that aren't built for you. You know what I mean? And I one of the things I would say though to companies that are starting internship programs are definitely don't be afraid to utilize the other skills that the interns have too. Like, for example, like I said earlier, I have a content background, production, and pretty much from week one, Craig was like, all right, you're going to edit the show, all the shows. And I was like, huh? But I had the skill base for it. And I was doing that along, learning digital marketing and, learning how to run campaigns and use all the tools available to us. So I think that's huge, is knowing, that people have lots of different skill sets and you can use them all,
Yeah. Yeah. You went from intern producer Caleb to full-time producer Caleb.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I love it. I think too, when companies pay interns, then you can feel the right to be a little pickier too when you're interviewing people, because if you're not paying them, sometimes it's easy to get into that mindset of like, oh, our client's daughter or, somebody's cousin needs an internship or, whatever that is. And if you're paying somebody and you're investing all of this time into training them, you're investing money in them, then you can be a little pickier. And, we interviewed a lot of interns to get the two of you. So, we did the right thing. So finally, to kind of close out, what advice would you give college students or someone currently interning at a company to make the most of their time as an intern?
I would say just look at your current position in your internship as like an opportunity to grow before anything else. And don't look at it as just like a stepping stone to the next thing, whatever that is, look at it more as, I'm here to learn this set of skills and I can develop those while I'm here, and I can use the ones I've developed at other places. And then, whatever happens next. If I go somewhere else, I can develop more skills. But look at it as a place to really enhance one part of, your skill set. It doesn't have to be everything or your entire future. It's where you are now, and just use it as that,
How about you, Nicole?
I agree with everything that Caleb said, and also just staying curious and asking as many questions while you're there, because people love to help younger professionals develop, and now is the time to ask the dumb question, even though there's really no dumb questions, and get to know someone who is in a different position at that company and see what they do. And you're never going to regret any professional experiences you have, even if it ends up being the wrong fit, or you realize, oh, I didn't like that about this job, or I didn't like this about that, a position, or you find stuff that you really do love about what you did. So again, just taking every experience and viewing it as a learning opportunity, and then knowing that you can move on and find something that you really love to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. This is all great advice. Thank you both so much for coming on the show and talking about it. You were both, part of this experiment. No, I'm just kidding. but I'm really glad that we have you both here full time. And since then, we've had several interns, since your semester. Mm-hmm. So it's been going well, and we're happy to keep changing and evolving and growing our program to keep growing our team here. So I appreciate you both coming on, and thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Agency Scoop. If you liked what you heard, you can subscribe so you don't miss a show. You can also find us on the Cypress North YouTube channel, or follow the Agency Scoop on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'd love to hear your ideas for future topics. See you next time on the Agency Scoop.